This year marks 50 years since world leaders made the connection between environmental management and poverty alleviation at the UN Conference on the Environment and Development held in Stockholm, Sweden in 1972. World leaders convened again in Sweden this June to assess progress towards the Sustainable Development Goals. In preparation, the government of Liberia, with support from the government of Sweden and UNDP, started a series of consultations to get the views of as many people as possible on how best to surmount the challenges of environment degradation, climate change, and recover from the COVID-19 pandemic. The consultation kicked off at the Monrovia City Hall on March 7 with ministers and diplomats outlining the objectives and expectations.
Let me begin by expressing our gratitude on behalf of the United Nations to the government of Sweden for supporting the Liberia Stockholm+50 national consultation, which will bring together the whole of government, which will bring together the whole of society.
Liberia is fully committed to the COP26 and other protocols and conventions on climate action, and will work with other stakeholders to efficiently manage our natural resources to meet the targets of the Sustainable Development Goals.
Less than a week ago, at the United Nations Environment Assembly in Kenya, Liberia signed a treaty to ban plastics.
I remember when I was a young diplomat 28 years ago now, 28 years ago, I was in charge of the accession negotiations of Sweden, the Nordic countries and Austria to the EU, and in those days we were saying, oh my God, these Swedish people, they're so obsessed with the environment and the clean, and my God, they were right. They were right. They were right before pretty much everybody else.
The global community is facing climate and nature crisis. This is not speculation or theories. It is science and it's evidence. We also know that environmental multilateralism works. To fight a challenge that crosses national borders, we must simply adapt approaches that are fit for purpose. Global partnerships and collaboration for the planet is more urgent than ever. The Stockholm+50 meeting calls on an inclusive approach that reflects the richness and diversity of voices and perspectives of various stakeholder groups. Everyone's, even the children.
Do you know that every minute a garbage truck full of plastic waste ends up in the ocean and remains there? Large pieces of plastic exposed to the sun and salt water fall apart and become small pieces of plastic. Birds and fish eat these small pieces of plastic and die of it. Many sea animals get caught and die in the plastic nets that float in the water. More than 1,000 sea animals die of plastic waste each year. It is very important to tell everyone how dangerous plastic is for the animals and people and the world.
What is the guarantee that I can achieve my dreams and aspiration of becoming a lawyer? And I am not convinced that the next conference will make any difference for someone like me.
Let me express my two desires. The first is I do hope that today's launch will be the beginning of a much stronger movement to bring citizens on board with this agenda of protecting our environment and promoting prosperity for people, and also to create decent jobs for its people. That after talking today, tomorrow we will act. I don't want us to be seen as the people who came here and spoke about problems and challenges and fancy words, and then left and nothing happened.
After this, the consultations went regional to Buchanan and Ganta, bringing together participants from all of the country's 15 counties.
Community is dirty.
Community is dirty. What's the cause?
It's dirty because there is no care in this community.
So who need to take care?
Number one, the citizen and the government have to back the citizen too.
Several side consultations were also organized for high school and university students.
That whoever created the universe, be it God or whoever you believe in, took his or her time to put this system together. System failure comes when one component fails. And this is what the world is facing today. Failure within the system of the universe, or the earth.
Actually, my key concern and my main point here is the economical system, which I keep discussing on. If there is an economical system built in Liberia and a good environment or conducive place for living, we will have more development, and that of more health workers will be here to prevent us from what is going on in the country. So I ask the world leader out there today to please help us with our economical system because it is not stable. It keeps confusing us our everyday life. We keep finding some difficulties on how to prevent ourselves from all the problems in the community and that of the environment. So thanks.
You see, people are building in swampy areas. Just sometimes in September last year, there was a serious flooding situation in Banga here that was established due to a survey by two causes. One, the expansion of the riverbank of the Jaw River and building in swampy areas. While Liberia is signing onto these protocols, there are still challenges with implementation which we think needs to be addressed.
So I'm optimistic that when the world leaders do go for their Stockholm+50 conference, I do know that rational decisions will be made concerning our health and our future. But the main question is, how will the people from Liberia that are going to represent us to this conference reach the information out to those people in the rural areas, in the villages? Because it's not all about going for the conference, but how will the information go across after you've heard all those information for the conference? Because we do know that Moreover is not Liberia.
One thing I would like to stress is the SDG. We have to do with the Sustainable Development Goal. And Liberia is part of that goal. Liberia signed an agreement to make sure that goal be sustained. I would like to advise our representative going out there that they should not forget about the goal. Because if you look at the ranking of Liberia on that goal, since it was established, Liberia ranked 161 over 165. Specifically, Liberia is only acting on two, which is the climate action. They are on track and that of the responsible consumption production. You got hunger, you got land below water, you got land above water. You can see we are not on track with it. So I would like that the SDG be intact as our leader goal. Thank you.
Someday, Liberia will go to a better place, and if we have government that will be able to help the environment and help Liberia by producing the trash can, put it on the street. So we the citizens should be able to be good if we drink water plastic by putting it in the trash can and things.
I believe that if the government of Liberia work with the citizen, this country will be a better place because Liberia is a democratic state. And it says that the government is for the people, by the people, and with the people. They all can join together and work to make Liberia a better one.
We the Liberians, I believe that we are one family and together we can improve Liberia for a better future.
I think we're acting, but I don't think we're acting quickly enough. Liberia doesn't have that many technological advances like other countries that are doing better in their earth systems and their resources. And I think a lot of people are uneducated to these facts, so that's why we keep on polluting our area.
I think Liberia is not trying because even if you tell people not to throw trash on the street, they'll tell you if you want the street to be clean, go clean it yourself. But if it was social trash, and they tell you, they'll say this is not America.
The trash
It's like a culture because over the years we continue to do it and people have just gotten used to it. So necessarily saying to impact it to say no more trash, it is going to take many years because we have done it over and over. So it's just not one speech that can change the whole environment's purpose.
I think we're not acting quickly enough because the government, they're not punishing people for throwing dirt on the street and they're not providing trash cans.
The executive director of Liberia's Environment Protection Agency, EPA, Prof. Wilson Tarpe, set the ball rolling for the regional consultations.
As you already know, Liberia is the world's third lungs. There are 3 lungs in the world: the Amazon forest, the Congo Basin, and the Upper Guinea forest. The Upper Guinea forest spans between 17 to 20 countries. Liberia holds 40% of that. And the forest that we have is the most original rainforest you can find anywhere here. This country produces, that forest cover produces and is responsible for rain as far as the Sahara Desert.
The 2 regional consultations in Buchanan and Ganta tackled the 3 Stockholm+50 leadership issues.
So I think one way we can decentralize environmental awareness is by mainstreaming the importance, the impact, and the effects of the environment through our educational system. That is, from our primary to tertiary level of education, we can highly take the importance of the environment highly into consideration by nurturing people from the baseline. Environmentally, when people are not educated, they don't take into consideration the action towards the environment. And logically speaking, we are the environment. Humans in general are the environment. In terms of any negative impact, we suffer more. So there's a need that education, environmental education, should be taken highly into consideration.
This fight against climate change is shifting from a free model to a business model. Because it has been years, several billions have come to Africa, Liberia, in AIDS. What we have to show. There's no sustainability plan. You can't, maybe you say you want to attack the NJ, the SDG 7. So you go to a rural community and you construct a mini solar farm. Because it's an NGO thing, so it's free, everybody has an electricity, the system runs for maybe 5 to 6 years, and there is a problem. Because it's not a business model, it's not going to sustain itself. Who's going to repair it? But if you take that investment, give it to a private company and do that solar farm at a minimum level, just something to maintain and have a garden and maintain it, becomes sustainable instead of just giving it free. We have so many free things around here that we cannot account for. Because once it's free, I'm not going to take care of it. But if I put my resources in it, I'm going to take care of it. So I think we should start together. Let us make this climate change thing a business model, then we are talking.
Agriculture itself can be a victim and a contributor to climate change. How can it be a victim? Agriculture can be a victim because you have agricultural land being lost to urbanization. Even right in Monrovia and other cities, places where we could plant vegetable and other things with maybe little or no fertilizer, people are backfilling and using those places for construction. Agriculture land can also be lost because the seawater is increasing and becoming more salty. That agriculture can also be a contributor because we see people using huge chemical pesticides, a lot of chemicals.
We also need to make sure that we manage our waste properly, especially from our homes. We realize that most times people take rubbish or garbage from their homes and put it in the street. And we depend on the government to help us clean the street. No, we need to be cognizant of the fact that our health is dependent on what we do to the environment is going to come back to us. So we shouldn't wait for people to tell us to be clean, to clean the air for us. We ourselves can manage our waste from our homes and make sure that we not pollute the environment because it will come back to us with negative impact.
A disabled can only survive in an environmentally friendly society For example, the issue of flood is often caused by we, the inhabitant of the habit, because of dumping waste product in drainages and building on water. Now, how do we escape visually impaired and physically challenged to move in such a surrounding without resulting exclusion in society?
We have lost a lot of our species, birds, mammals, reptiles, fishes, since 1970. 68% since 1970 are choosing to become extinct in the next 50, 60, 100 years by the choices we're making today.
We must look to higher education in this country. In urban medicine, there is no curriculum relevant to conduct research of our forests, to produce the type of medicine and food that we need to protect our people. There is no nation in the world will survive without educated people. A curriculum that's relevant to conduct research. All these things that we are talking. Call me or show me one university in Liberia that is capable of conducting research. Zero.
So national government assisted by external partners need to develop and implement strategies to make their health system strong and resilient. A weak health system exposes the country's health system vulnerabilities. We all know from the EBD virus, Liberia was highly hit, and from that standpoint, we came out with the Disaster Management Agency to have one. From there, it gave birth to also the National Public Health Institute of Liberia. For Liberia to achieve this, we should engage in specialized programs, get the relevant human and health authorities involved. If we don't have specialized people in our country, we'll continue to do the same thing over and over and again. And all of these people, they are enshrined in the One Health sector.
Poverty has an inverse relationship to the quality of the environment. As people are poor, they engage in sustainable environmental economic activities for survival. In order to address that, we have to put money in their pockets.
On the issue of sustainability, then we need to question ourselves, why have we forgotten those practices that help us to deal with the Ebola?
We, persons with disabilities, PWDs, were challenged in some cases that people will go to carry on awareness. They will not allow persons with disability to be part, because if our police see all in that awareness, they will surely listen to us. But sometimes they leave out with this awareness. Even the COVID-19 vaccine, when they were carrying on awareness, persons with disabilities was not part.
There are also advantages of COVID-19. Researchers told us that because of limited activities, because people were working remotely, because there were no people, many persons driving cars, driving trains to go from place to place, the emission of greenhouse gases dropped. And because of that, we had cleaner air. People were breathing freely because the air was not polluted at the time. What I want to talk about two things that we can do. Those two things is stop talking and start acting.
We have to concentrate efforts in working with the animal sector, meaning with the Ministry of Agriculture and the EPA, and together we
accelerate our efforts in working together on the One Health platform. Thank you.
Now that we are going towards reducing the COVID and we see that it is dropping, what role can we say that forest, wildlife have played in this process, and what message can we give out to the world if this is necessary in the COVID reduction process? Thank you.
Had to push for, we are still pushing though, for the decentralization of vaccination sites. Currently, the vaccination sites are just dominated at the national level, and in rural communities, many are not aware of the vaccines. So Ministry of Health have to do well with the information sharing. And because of that, we just did a project to one of our partners, OSIWA. OSIWA is going to support the National Civil Society Council of Liberia to decentralize the information around vaccine, and we'll work closely with the Ministry of Health, the National Public Health Institute of Liberia, to create the awareness and to encourage more people to get vaccinated.
Us as communities, let us consider social protection, because there are no social protection currently that is ongoing that can really lead to this inclusive recovery. We have people with disabilities still challenged. We have women challenged. We have women and girls that suffer rape and other sexual and gender-based violence from the COVID period that are still going through that need for social protection. So I want us to look in that direction.
I want to assure you that the UN and women remains committed to working with key stakeholders, partners, on ensuring that a gender-responsive policy environment that promotes healthy planet for women and girls, including men and boys alike, demonstrating a healthy planet for everyone.
And rules and regulations, even from the environmental standpoint, from a legislative standpoint, there are rules and regulations, policies, but the key thing that we are lacking in our country, I think, is empowerment. We haven't empowered our people.
Recognizing our team are all interrelated, and are aware that this consultation is going as planned to be very inclusive of key stakeholders, because meaningful engagement will only be accomplished if every stakeholder is given a chance to be heard. And we want to recognize youth role as a key player in the entire consultation to produce an outcome, because we are a gap filler between the generation to come and the old generation. Many people have already spoken, and the speeches touch almost everything. But for me, I want to come in as a youth who is experienced in the field of advocacy for the environment and planet. I serve as a primary education coordinator of the Library for Climate Actions, and I've recently established Golden Waste Solution Enterprise Incorporated, which is we are involved with recycling of waste. For startup, we'll just be doing plastic and litter waste, and as we go forward, we intend to explore other innovative waste management solutions and to share the solution with the world. This is a mineral water bottle I transformed this way. So coming from the youth angle, I want to say that the youth are key players in this support because we are innovative. The moment you give out the knowledge, we try to think outside the box. See what mineral water bottle will look like on your table? If you don't throw it away, but give it to me.
The EPA was founded in 2003. It took us more than 30 years for the government library to establish an institution. It took us 50 years to produce the first master student. That was last week.
Livelihood support to our people have become very, very, very infinitesimally small. I mean, I just want to emphasize how little it is. We have a forest that is serving as a carbon sink, sequestering a lot of carbon that is emitted by industrialized country. What do we get in return? We, as a ministry, as our government, will not carry on any activities of mining or exploration in those areas that have been already protected, but we are asking the global community for our fair share for keeping our landscapes as pristine as possible to enable our citizens who live around the fringes in our economy that is just on the rise to help us improve.
These statements you make here, are these statements made at national government level for government to understand that these things are problems faced by the government, or are they only just made in a setting like this? Because it's important to have pay for play, and so if we have these things happening around our community, happening around our forests, and we cannot highlight it in government setting, then it becomes a problem.
The industrialized countries are still polluting and not paying. Our trees are sequestering. Who pays for that? That is environmental injustice.
We have to revisit the governance structure in order to reduce the red tape. And we have come to hold a very frank discussion. No matter how much funding the government and our partners contribute towards the energy environment sector, if we still have these bottlenecks in our system, those fundings will not be used for the intended purposes. So we have to strive to minimize, if not eradicate, corruption in our system. We have to focus on those interventions that will enable us to achieve near zero GHG gas emissions. One way to do that is to establish a green corridor in all of our counties.
We are at 2022, so we have approximately, 7.5 more years to reach to 2030. Most of these policies, we go out, we develop, we sign, but we don't come back to implement. I think that is our big problem, and that's what needs to be done.
The policy I think is done well. Liberia has some of the best laws in terms of environmental protection. I can tell you that. But guess what? Government does not invest money into protecting the environment the way it should be.
We need to invest in the media. Train journalists. Journalists will make themselves available to specialize.